Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Medtech POV, a podcast brought to you by AdvaMed, the Medtech Association, the world's largest trade organization for medical technology companies. I'm your host, Scott Whitaker. Today, we're pleased to have Steve Mapa, the new president and executive director of MedTechVets, on the show. MedTechVets is an incredible organization supporting transitioning service members into careers in the medical technology field. AdvaMed is a proud supporter of the MedTechVets mission. I hope you enjoyed the show. Steve, welcome to the show. It's good to have you.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate you having me.
I like to always start these episodes by trying to give the audience a sense of the person that I'm interviewing. So maybe we can start with where your upbringing was and a little bit about your background.
Yeah, sure. So I was born in Philadelphia, PA, and raised in a suburb called Westchester, which is where we currently live.
Yep.
And I was an only child growing up. But we lived next to a big house full of kids, and they kind of adopted me as one of their own. So we did a lot of sports, a lot of games, really supportive parents. So my dad was an electrical engineer. He got his undergrad degree at Drexel for 8 years, master's degree from Penn State, another 4 years. Loved to learn. And then my mom was a nurse. Really spiritual, had really great parents, really supportive growing up.
Yeah, that's great. So you graduated from high school and then you decided to head to the military academy, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. What took you there? What was the journey like?
Yeah, so, my dad was enlisted in the Navy, and he talked a lot about that when I was a kid. He started as an electrician apprentice at the Navy Yard in Philly.
Okay.
And his reserve unit got activated during the Cuban Missile Crisis. He was on a Navy aircraft that would spot Soviet submarines. And he talked about that. So I always found that interesting. And, really had a strong desire to serve the country. Right. And, landed on going to West Point.
So you did 4 years there, and then what was after that?
Yeah, so 4 years, and then was commissioned as an Army officer.
Okay.
So I was a second lieutenant in an armor unit. Okay. So our unit got deployed during the first Gulf War, Operation Desert Storm. Yeah. So spent some time in Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and Kuwait, and it was a great experience. It was I was young, 23, newly married. Wow. My wife was living in Kansas by herself. We learned a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough for the spouse to go through something like that. Not to mention how hard it is for you as well as a young guy going off to battle. How many years were you overseas?
We were deployed just about 4.5 months.
Okay.
So it was January 1st of 91 till about May 9th.
Okay.
So.
And then straight back to the States, or did you go elsewhere before?
Straight back to the States.
Okay.
Yeah, back to Kansas.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then how long did you stay in the Army before you retired?
So I was active duty. I got out of the Army in 92. I graduated West Point in 89. So I was active duty for about 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 3 years, and then you retired, and at that point you decided it was time to transition into the private sector, I guess, right?
Yeah. I was a college grad, so I had a bachelor's degree in engineering management from West Point. I had been in a leadership role in the Army, so I found myself with a technical degree with leadership experience, but no real industry experience other than the military. Okay. So. What I found was there were recruiters, but there weren't real transition or training programs, like a MedTechVets or SkillBridge programs as they exist today. Right. So it was really, I would say, quite the challenge to transition and find, a career with purpose, leaving the military. Yeah.
And do you think there's anything about doing that in the 90s that would have been different than it is today? Was it easier or harder at that stage?
That's a good question. I mean, the only thing I can compare it to is the resources today, I would say, are greatly enhanced. Yeah. Whereas back in the day, it was more of a friend of a friend. Right. So today there's just like MedTechVets. Right. It's a program that helps these veterans transition. Yeah. Which back then, really nothing like that really existed.
Yeah. So the transition for you was basically into MedTech, right? Did you head directly into GE Healthcare? Was that your first stop?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Scott.
Yep.
So no, actually, when I left the military, I ended up working for a chemical company. Okay. For 10 years. Okay. So the chemical company was looking for a degreed engineer, and they taught you to be a salesperson. Okay. So that part was positive. Yep. Learned a lot. was trained pretty well. But MedTech, I always thought was more interesting because of the technology and the sense of purpose.
Yeah.
Taking care of patients.
Yeah.
So MedTech ended up at GE Healthcare, really with assistance from classmates and friends like Mike Minogue.
Right. So you were 10 years with the chemical company.
Right.
And so it would have been early 2000s then when you transitioned into the MedTech space.
Exactly.
And your first job in MedTech was with GE Healthcare, though, right?
That's correct.
Is that right?
Yes.
And is that where you knew Mike Minogue? Is he the one who brought you in?
So Mike and I are actually classmates from West Point.
Okay.
So we graduated together, and then we went our separate ways. But he went directly to GE Healthcare.
Yep.
I went directly to outside the industry.
Yeah.
And he helped me network.
Yeah.
So I was able to get interviews and put my resume in the right hands.
Yeah.
And went to work at GE Healthcare as a pet specialist.
Okay.
So I would work with the sales teams.
Yep.
To present the technical aspects of a PET CT scanner for cancer detection. And it was a great job.
Yeah. What was it about MedTech? You touched on this earlier, but what was it about MedTech that was so unique? The purpose associated with it, the patient focus, you hear that from a lot of military folks. They need to have something bigger than just a job once they leave the military, right?
Absolutely.
Was that it?
Absolutely, yeah. So I would say the common theme is in the military it was service to the country. Right. Which was a higher sense of purpose, obviously. Right. And the similarity in MedTech is the service to the patients and the families. Yeah. Right. So what I learned along the way, at GE and then at AdvaMed, is there's a lot of talented people in MedTech. Right. The industry reps are talented. The hospital staff, the doctors, the nurses, administrators, all really talented people. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I'd say the thing that was most fulfilling was seeing how a patient recovered on an Impella device. Right. And then, talking to their family members. Yeah. And them telling us, my father got to see me get married. We saw another grandkid born. Things like that. Yeah. And it sounds cheesy, but that was the best part of the job.
Yeah, I don't think it's cheesy at all. I think you hear that from a lot of folks inside this industry, right? It's one thing to sell something that's neat, right, or to some degree meaningful to the economy. It's a different thing when you're building something or selling something that directly impacts a patient's life, right? I mean, we see it over and over. No matter the company, no matter the level of the employee, there's just a bigger purpose to it, and everybody feels it. And you probably experienced this too, Steve. Once you get in the industry, it's really hard to get out, right? People stay, right, for the same reason. They get in because of the mission, and then they stay in, right?
Absolutely.
Because of the mission. I think that experience that you've had, Mike Minogue had at GE Healthcare, and then when he took over AdvaMed, it just sticks with you for a long time, right? So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
And I think it's a good message for veterans who are coming out and looking for where do they go next, right? What's the next stop for me? Why should I work here? Why does it matter to me? But to have that experience. So let's transition to talk about MedTechVets a little bit. It's a great organization, right? I've been associated with it now for 8 or 9 years, and does just great work for vets trying to transition, similar to what you went through, what Mike went through, and others. So talk to us a little bit about the academy that you're setting up and some of the success you've had in helping to transition these service members into new jobs. So.
Yeah, the Academy is really a great program. So it's a 7-week virtual training course. Okay. And Derek Herrera, who I think you know, he was instrumental in moving this training to a virtual platform several years ago. And we're currently in the spring cohort, so we offer this 4 times a year. Okay. So we're in the 6th week of the spring cohort, and then there's summer, fall, and winter. Okay. So we offer this 4 times a year. And the curriculum is essentially there's a MedTech overview. There's resume writing, there's digital profile with LinkedIn, there's interviewing, networking, and a capstone presentation. Okay. So the idea is to have the candidates present their ideal job, and then we try to match their skill sets with job opportunities within MedTech. Okay. Right. Okay. So the thing I've been really impressed with, a couple things I've been really impressed with, that was one of them, is the placement rate. Okay. So the placement rate out of the Academy is currently about 95%. Wow. Which I thought was amazing. And then also the retention rate is really high, 84% retention rate. So not only do they get the job, but they end up staying there and doing well. Right?
Yeah.
And one thing that I'm really excited that we're working on is a new program called the Executive Leadership Program.
Okay.
So this is something that we're going to start as a source for West Point and Annapolis grads.
Okay.
Right. And this is going to be, those academy people that are completing their service, top recruits, diverse candidates,
Right.
and those that have shown leadership experience.
Okay.
So that's something that we're going to add
Okay.
in addition to the current
In addition
academy.
to the academy that
Right.
exists right now.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and you're focusing that on certain high-level, talented kids coming out of the academies right now, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of our networking, a lot of our contacts
Yeah.
lie in that arena, and that's where we're gonna start.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
So
95% of folks who get in the academy get a job.
correct.
And once they get that job, 84% of them stay in that job for the companies that they're working for.
That's also correct.
That's a pretty amazing success rate, I would say.
I would agree.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that I was, I was impressed with.
Yeah.
When joining.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I think, if you're a company looking for great employees, those two numbers tell you a lot about it, right? Whether or not you should recruit or try to get these vets to come into your company, right? If 95% of them are getting a job and 85% of them are staying,
Yeah.
like that's the type of candidate that you want to really focus on going forward, right?
Definitely.
So, yep.
Yeah.
So sometimes we often overlook the value of mentorship, I would say also. And I know MedTechVets does a lot in the area of mentorship and the importance of that and helping people grow. Talk about the work there that MedTechVets is doing.
Yeah, another great point. Probably the primary reason why I left AdvaMed was the mission of MedTechVets, and it states right in the mission statement about mentors.
Okay.
Right. So what you'll see on the website for MedTechVets is helping military veterans transition and find a career with purpose in medtech through education, mentoring, and networking.
Yeah.
So right in the mission statement, talking about mentoring.
Yeah.
And with medtech, over 20 years in medtech, and as an Army veteran,
Yeah.
I got to a point in my life and my career where I felt like it was time to give back and to help transitioning veterans, and that was a big reason why I wanted to come here and work with this group.
Yeah, it's fantastic. There's also a lot of folks that I've worked with, and you have as well, who are tremendous resources to have, right? Mike Minogue's obviously at the top of that list, right?
Right.
Derek Herrera is another one. Talk about some of the folks that you know, directly or indirectly, who have provided support and mentorship for you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely both Mike Minogue, Derek Herrera in this process have been awesome. I was impressed with the story where Mike Minogue was at an AdvaMed event in 2012 talking to a group of veterans expressing frustration, and he decided to form MedTechVets over 10 years ago,
right?
Which I thought was tremendous. Derek, who's a Navy grad, has done a great job with this. Mike Grice, who is also Marine Corps colonel, who's retired, he was instrumental in learning about this group. And Patrice Sutherland, another West Point classmate.
Right.
All of them have been, very helpful to me personally, and I think they've done some really, really great work.
Really amazing thing.
Yeah.
We shouldn't look past Alex Gorski either, right? Who had a huge impact, not only running J&J, but the network that was established, and he helped support with Mike,
That's right?
Mentoring veterans who are coming into the business as well. Amazing impact he's had in MedTech, and I assume in the lives of many veterans as well.
That's a fair point. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very good. You all always have a great presence at the MedTech conference, so let's talk about that a little bit. Give us a sense of what you're thinking about at the MedTech conference this year, which is in Toronto for the first time, so outside of this country, but we're excited about it. But talk about your vision for MedTechVets at the MedTech conference.
Yeah, really excited. I've been to Toronto before several times. It's been a couple years, but I'm looking forward to going back. So what we're planning is, one of the things I know we're planning is a networking breakfast.
Okay.
So we're going to invite 2 of our partner MedTech companies to come and participate as speakers. We're also going to invite 3 alumni of the academy training. So veterans that went through MedTechVets and got jobs, we're going to ask them to come back and share their story with others. We're also going to sponsor some veteran graduates of the academy. So those that maybe haven't found a job yet, but went through the training, we're going to sponsor them to attend. And then our team will be there, including me. We'll be on the floor, networking and supporting the conference and making sure that we're learning about, everything that's new within AdvaMed.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think, if people who are listening to this aren't all that familiar with the MedTech conference, it is probably the premier conference in the world of networking and meeting people, mentors and leaders and others, to get you a better sense of what goes on in this industry. And everybody is there, right? CEOs are all there. They're walking the floor. They're very present. Business development leaders are there. Sales leaders are there. HR professionals are there. So the whole crowd is there, and it is a great opportunity, I think, for vets, aspiring vets, to come in and expose themselves to the companies, right? And including the HR leaders who will be there as well. So if anyone's listening, they haven't participated before, I would really encourage it. And then also for our companies, right? I think it's a great opportunity for all the companies in MedTech to connect with you all there and get to know not only MedTechVets better, but the people who serve inside these companies as well. So I'm sure our folks will be excited about it, and we're looking forward to seeing what you guys have for us there as well. So
looking forward to it.
How can folks get involved with the work you're doing? I'm thinking about our companies directly, and then maybe broadly others who want to give back and support a cause like this. Talk about that.
Yeah, I think there's two primary ways, Scott. As you know, MedTechVets is a nonprofit group,
right.
So 501c3. So donations is how the organization has been funded since the beginning.
Yep.
So that would be one way. The other way I would say is through the mentorship program.
Yep.
So some of the statistics that I've seen in MedTech, there's 20,000 or more veterans within all the medical technology companies. So we're always looking for, a veteran or a non-veteran. Anybody who's willing to mentor a transitioning veteran would be welcome to participate as a mentor.
Okay.
And I'd personally like to thank you and AdvaMed
right.
for your support, both financially and with mentors over the years. I've heard nothing but praise from the MedTechVets group.
Yeah.
And we appreciate that.
Well, that's the least we can do. I mean, it's a great opportunity for us to give back, particularly for those of us who didn't have the opportunity to serve, right? It gives us an opportunity to give back to people who helped make sure the path for us was clear, right? And it's an honor to do it, and I know the whole team here feels that way. So we appreciate the opportunity to not only be connected with it, provide some financial support, provide other in-kind donations to help support you, and just know we're always there. The whole team's there, right, to help wherever we can. So.
And we appreciate that. And as the new person with MedTechVets, I've heard nothing but praise from the leadership team. Yeah. And that's something that's appreciated, and I look forward to working with you as well.
It's hard to find a much better mission. I mean, this is an industry that does a lot of great things, but this entity is right at the top of that list. So
great.
Steve, I like to close out the conversations with sort of a round of lightning round questions,
sure.
Right? A few questions just for fun. So talk to me about the first and maybe the most impactful book that you've read.
Yeah, good question. There's been a lot of impactful books, but I would say I've read one recently that really made a huge impact. And the book is called Finding Waypoints. I don't know if you've heard or read this from Lieutenant or Colonel retired Greg Gatson. Yep. So you read it as well?
He's an amazing dude. Yeah, I've met him before, had a good conversation with him. In fact, I ran into him in the airport sort of randomly a few months ago, right? What an inspirational guy.
What a great guy. So Greg is our classmate from West Point. So 89 classmate. He retired as a colonel. And he's also on the MedTechVets board.
Okay.
So I saw him at an event in Philadelphia, and he gave me a signed copy of the book. Yeah. And I read it right before Christmas. And he talks about May 7th, 2007 as his Alive Day.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, right? Mm-hmm. So May 7th, 2007 is the day where Colonel Gatson was driving in a Humvee back to his unit in Iraq, having just attended a memorial service for two of his fallen soldiers. And the Humvee ran over an IED, an improvised explosive device. And he was seriously injured, so much to the point where he lost both of his legs, and his right arm and his right hand were severely damaged. The thing I was most impressed with in this book was just how transparent and how vulnerable he was, talking about his fears, his concerns, not only on how to recover, but also to how to support the family, be a productive member of society, things like that. he talked a little bit about the Army football team motto, pride, poise, and team,
right?
Which I thought was a great motto, not just for Army football, but also for the military, for Medtech, for life. I thought those were really great messages. And I would say at the end of the day, Greg is an inspiration to all of us, and I'm really proud to call him a friend. Yeah,
he's an amazing guy, and it's amazing to see the resiliency he's had to continue living his life, right? And mentoring, I'm sure, a lot of vets along the way, right, as they're trying to transition into life. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, it's a great book.
Great book.
If you could have dinner with one person alive today or from the past, who would it be and why?
Yeah, my original answer when I was talking to Cody earlier was I was going to pick my parents, because both my parents, we lost them, and my in-laws actually recently, but I don't know if I would get through that. So I'm going to pick somebody else. So the person I picked was President Reagan, Ronald Reagan, and I've always been a big fan of President Reagan. He was a college athlete. He was the governor of California. He became president ultimately. He was a veteran.
Right.
He started his political career off as a Democrat, and then he switched to Republican.
Right.
So, the part I've been really impressed with for his life is just how he's built connections and built bridges.
Yeah.
So between parties, between people, between countries, he was somebody that brought people together.
Yeah.
And I was always impressed with that.
Yeah, amazing president. Always cast a great vision, too, right? And never really wavered from it. And the steadiness that came with Reagan was something that I always admired, too. So great choice. Yeah. What's your most important success, and then maybe your most important failure as well along the way?
So easily, most important success is getting married and having kids.
Yeah.
So Patty, my wife, and I are celebrating our 34th wedding anniversary in June, and we have 3 amazing kids. So we have a 29-year-old daughter, Christina. She got married last year to her husband, Jake, and they work in cloud-based solution sales, so they're selling software. They live in Philadelphia. We have a daughter, Alex, who's 28. She got married last year as well. She and her husband, Austin, are school teachers, and they live right down the road from us in Westchester. And then we have a son, Connor, who's in a doctorate program in Portland, Oregon at Pacific University for psychology. He's in the first year of a 5-year program. So couldn't be more proud of all of them, and it's been exciting to welcome 2 new sons-in-law between Jake and Austin.
Yeah.
And that's clearly my best success.
Yeah, that's great.
So
that's impressive. Having 3 kids, I know how impressive it is to pull that off. So we're a little bit behind you, but hopefully we'll be successful like you were there. So
they have a great mother.
Yeah, that helps,
so
doesn't it? Yeah.
I can't take any of the credit.
That's the same with me. That's the biggest deal. So what's the one failure you look back on, if you have one, right, and say, that helped shape my success probably more than anything else?
Absolutely. I would say the early days of sales, lots of failures.
Yeah.
Being new to an industry, new to a company outside the military. And this is where a lot of the mentors and the coaches came into play. And a lot of my teachers, a lot of my bosses, would teach us, to say that sales is kind of like a baseball team. It's kind of like playing baseball.
Yeah.
So the best baseball players are going to strike out 7 out of 10 times.
Right.
But the key is to be resilient, to have a plan, be organized, do after-action reviews, learn, and continuous improvement. So that kind of mentality really helped.
Right.
Because in the beginning, as a young person, it was kind of demoralizing. Mm-hmm. But with the right supporters and the right training and the right network, was able to learn from that and take those experiences and apply those to the rest of my life and the rest of my career. Yeah,
that's great. Had a sort of a mentor of mine told me one time, you can't succeed until you learn how to fail. And I thought that was a really, really good lesson, right? And it's kind of stuck with me for probably 25 years now. And I've had my share of failures that I guess have led to some success. So.
Right, that's great. That's great advice.
Anyway. All right, Steve. Well, thanks for coming on. Thanks for taking on this new role with MedTechVets. We look forward to working with you. It's an unbelievable mission. And for all those who are listening, we'll direct you on LinkedIn to the right website to connect, and welcome all of you to come join and support this great cause. So with that, thanks for joining us.
Thanks a lot, Scott. Appreciate the opportunity, and really excited to work with you and the AdvaMed team as well.
Thanks again for tuning in to the MedTech POV podcast. For more episodes, visit advamed.org/podcast or subscribe to MedTech POV on your favorite streaming platform.